Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. This week, I'll be speaking with Radhika Narayana. Radhika is the Director of Cloud and Managed Services for enterprise solutions provider Calian IT and Cyber Solutions, where she is responsible for Managed Services Network Operations Center for Collaboration, Network, Data, and Cloud Services. She also brings 20 years of experience in enterprise solution design installation and complex global infrastructure support, and she's highly certified with Cisco Certified Internetwork Expert, CCIE, collaboration, and ITIL certifications. Customer success and customer satisfaction drive Radhika. During her career, she has designed, planned, and executed several large unified communications and contact center deployments, migrations, and upgrades on new and existing telephony environments. Prior to joining Calian IT and Cyber Solutions, Radhika served as a Senior NOC Manager for General Datatech, where she worked across various managed services groups to standardize customer-facing change management processes. Radhika holds a Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics and Communications from Bangalore University. Welcome to the show, Radhika. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Great. Well, let's get started. So, Radhika, as a woman in tech, can you share with us your career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I started my career in IT just after my engineering degree. I was really fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to get into networking field, where I was asked to get a bunch of certifications within 6 months. I had so much passion at that time because I was fresh out of college, was looking for a job, and one of the companies reached out and said, can you get all these certifications done in the next 6 months? And if you do clear it, then we will actually place you in one of the agencies, and you'll be probably required to travel to United States. And this was back in India. This was in 2000, by the way. So I was able to get the certifications, and then it was all Cisco related, Cisco systems, where IT and was in a kind of like a peak stage, right? Internet started, and I was able to get a lot of Cisco certification, and that's how I actually got into IT. 20 years later, I can't imagine all the stuff that I have done and where I am. I was really fortunate enough to be given that opportunity.
That's great. I mean, you were fortunate enough to be given the opportunity, but you also did some very, very hard work to get there. So these certifications, you have several of them. You did a great job. What is your view on certifications in the industry today? And should our listeners consider getting certified prior to gaining employment in the IT industry?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting topic, right? I always believe there are two aspects to getting certifications. One is certification will probably help you get better compensation in the marketplace. At the same time, you have to have the right knowledge. My journey to get some of the most difficult certifications in the industry was really difficult. I mean, I had to study for 2 years straight without sleep, or at least 3-4 hours of sleep to get one of the most recognized certifications in the industry, which is CCIE collaboration.
Wow.
So I would say for people out there, if you are looking to get certifications, just don't look at what is available. Try to get to know the technology, right? You have to have the right knowledge rather than just having a paper certification. That's really critical, I think, because for you to be able to make a difference, you need to understand the technology, right? Not just having a certification tag. So the other thing that I would say in IT, especially with certifications, IT offers a lot of technical fields, right? So if you're a fresher who is trying to get into IT, try to understand where do you want to be in IT, right? And try to get the certifications relevant to that technology. Unfortunately, IT is always runs like 1,000 miles per hour, I feel,
Mm-hmm.
wherein you have to stay on top of it. If you're not, you're going to be obsolete in the next year, right? That's how it is. So the certification that I got 20 years back, to be honest, is obsolete now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody is behind AWS and Microsoft, Azure, kind of a certification, right? So you really need to understand where you want to grow, right? Where do you want to build your career and focus on that. And before you go get the certification, try to understand the technology, spend time, and then go towards the certification, which would definitely help you get better compensation in the industry.
I think that's great advice, and I think you're spot on with, certifications are important if you have the knowledge behind it. You just don't want the paper because then when you're at the job, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to be passionate about it. It really is very important to have the knowledge that goes in applying what you've learned to the position. So I think you're spot on that. That's great. Great
Yep.
advice. You're also very passionate about customer satisfaction and success. Can you share some of the best practices to retain and gain loyal customers?
Yeah, definitely. So the industry that I'm in currently, which is managed services, right, is all about customers. I always say without customers, we don't exist, right? We don't have a
Mm-hmm.
job. That I think goes to probably everything in IT, right? We always serve customer base, right? We always have to be open to hearing customer feedback and then improve on based on the feedback, right? So I take customer satisfaction very, very seriously because
Mm-hmm.
that is the number one gauge that we have for us to be able to deliver better and to improve ourselves on, right? Um, which will help us improve our overall service, maybe get better services going forward from a revenue standpoint, right? So customer kind of is really important, right? Without which I don't think anybody in IT would have a job, you know.
Completely agree. Customers pay our paychecks. I always say that,
Yep,
you
yep,
know, and I tell my staff all the time, customers pay our paychecks because without customers, we have no business, right? So it
that
is
is
very
true.
important to make sure that you have a good pulse on your customers, understand what their needs are, and service those needs and listen to them because again, if you have your own agenda, it's not going to work. So very, very good advice. You have a strong background in tech. Why do you love tech? And as a woman in tech, how has this background served you?
Yeah, so when I moved from India 20 years back, right?
Mhm.
Um, i- like tech was not as advanced as it is now.
Mhm.
I feel tech makes me smarter, right?
Mhm.
It really helped me connect with my parents faster and my family
Mhm.
back in India
How
faster.
so? How so?
I mean, if you look at it, the way we used to communicate in the past was all postal mails and
Mhm.
um, other ways, right? I mean, we didn't have so much of emails and social media,
Right.
Facebook, Instagram, or whatever you want to call it as, right? It used to be really difficult. I mean, I had to pick up phone to call my parents,
Mhm.
and telephone costs were so expensive at that time,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Nowadays, it's not the case. I think tech has really helped connect people better, right?
Mhm.
Um, in a good way, right? I think it makes us smarter, right? Um, the other thing tech really has helped me personally is it, I think, has brought one of my other passion. Uh, it has really helped the planet Earth make become more greener. Where
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
if you really think about it, like the way we used to communicate, uh, as I mentioned, right, via postal mail, etc. I mean, there were so many papers that was used.
Right, right.
Apart from that, right, like reading, right? I mean, I'm a big sci-fi novel reader, right? I
Mm-hmm.
used to take a hard book and read. Now it's all
Mm-hmm.
about digital, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the same price or maybe a little bit lesser, right?
Right.
So I think in that way, um, it really has helped us become a little bit greener, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hope we use tech more um, to really help develop clean energy and save planet Earth at some point because
Right.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot working to help generate clean energy through tech.
absolutely.
I've worked with some large organizations who actually have teams that are out there looking at oil leaks and things like that to make sure that those don't occur. And when they occur, to make sure they're resolved instantly. So I think there is work being done in that area, but I love
Yep,
your comments about, the worldwide connectivity. I think we have so much more connectivity than we ever did. I
yep,
still remember writing directions, if I was going to somebody's house for the first time, turn left here, turn right here, look at the gas station on the corner. All of those things are gone now. It's amazing. And then the greener planet Earth, I think that's great. And we are smarter because we
yep,
can look up anything at our fingertips at any time. And I
yep.
think that's so important. Like if I'm watching a show and I want to know something, I can look it up instantly. And I think it makes us much more smarter. I completely agree with you. So that's great. Now, did you see a difference between how tech was run in India versus the US? I'm really curious about that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, back in the days where I was, I mean, now it's changed, right? It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
similar to what it is now. When I
Mm-hmm.
was growing up, there was not a lot of computers back there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It used to be a lot lesser. It was like a huge eye opener for me when I just came in for the first time, right? Um, I think there is a huge difference between the developing and the developed countries, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, wherein the amount of money that is spent on the tech,
Mm-hmm.
there is a huge difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that back in 2000s, but not
Mm-hmm.
anymore. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think now tech helping in so many ways, right? I think everybody back in India and other Eastern countries, right? I think have realized the value of tech and are using tech to that extent as we do here today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Now, I don't know. I have this feeling that, in India, they actually do more with women in tech than here. I think there's a different culture and they're open to it. Like you were given this opportunity. I don't know how often that happens here in the US. So it's just interesting observation from my part. I don't know if it's true. What do you think?
It was true when I was growing up. That's an interesting
Mm-hmm.
question.
Mm-hmm.
I would say nowadays it's totally different, right? So
Really?
when
Okay.
so when I was growing up, right, especially I come from Bangalore, which is considered the Silicon Valley of India, right? I
Okay.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, especially like whether you're a girl or a boy, right, are asked to educate, right, when we were growing up. And we were really pushed either to get a medical degree or an engineering degree, which was
Mm-hmm.
really funny. And
Mm-hmm.
but in I think US here we are I think export or we are exposing our kids to a lot of other fields,
Oh,
right?
okay. Okay.
Like not just medical engineering, but there is so many other opportunities out there, right? um, at least this was in 2000, but I think it
Mm-hmm.
has changed back in India as well now, wherein women are given other opportunity too, right? Not just.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I feel like as of today there are less women in tech when compared to what there may be previously,
Oh,
because of
wow.
the
Yeah.
yeah, because I'll be honest, if you are in tech, you have to work hard, you have to work after hours, and that's challenging
Mhm.
as a woman,
Right,
right?
right.
I mean, women,
You have
I
families, and yeah,
yep,
you have to take care of your family.
Yeah, as a woman, you have to wear so many hats. So that's kind of challenging. So I think because of which I think the trends have changed now, right? Back in India as well, I feel. But if you ask me a comparison between states and India, I would say India still probably has more women in tech when compared
I
to US.
agree. I
Yeah,
agree. I think they're more forward in that area because women are, looked at in the sense that they can do IT just as well as any other man. And here
absolutely.
I don't think there's that same thought process. So that's just my thoughts, but thank you for sharing that. That's great. So what are some of the key traits of a successful senior leader? So, you're very successful, you're a senior leader. What do you think got you to where you are today?
Um, I say like there are like 5 to 7 key aspects as a
Hmm.
leader
Hmm.
that you have to have if you want to be a effective leader. One of the main things is you have to be an effective communicator. If you
Yep.
cannot communicate well within your team or within your executive team, you're not going to be successful, and that's
Hmm.
really important, I think. And to be honest, for me, initially when I started my career, I was struggling a little bit there. You know, I have learned over the years, still working on becoming a better communicator
Hmm.
uh, all the time. The second thing is I have to be. I mean, you have to be self motivated, right?
Right.
Because as you grow up the ladder, you're not going to be asked by people to do certain things. I mean, you have to take upon yourself to improve stuff, right? How do we improvise on? So you really have to be self motivated, right? And then
Hmm.
you have to be a strategic planner
Hmm.
and a visionary, I think, you know.
Hmm.
Then as a leader, you really have to be accountable and responsible,
Yep.
and you have to be confident in like any decisions that you make, right? I always believe in once you make a decision, no regrets.
Right.
You got to stick to whether it is has any bad outcomes or good outcome. You got to take that and move on, right? You have to be
Right.
confident, right? And then you have to be people oriented, and you really, I mean, um, I always believe there is customer success is the number one, and the second is your team, right? You have to be able to be talking to people openly, because at the end of the day, we interact with individuals, right? It is
Hmm.
people's feelings. So you really have to be people oriented.
Hmm.
And the
That's
other
great. Hmm.
and the last thing is I would say is like you got to be emotionally stable, especially as you go up the ladder, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You really cannot uh, get offended or get angry or anything like that, because you're going to hear, especially in IT, half the time that I get called on, people are not happy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So you have to be emotionally stable. I think those are the key things that really would make a great leader, I would say.
That's great. Great traits that you called out. So being a good communicator, being self-motivated, being a planner, a visionary, being accountable and responsible, having confidence, being people oriented, and also emotionally stable. That's really, really important. Do you think some of these are learned skills, or do you have to have them prior to going in there? How did you feel like? Which ones did you have already, and which ones did you feel like you can learn along the way?
I would say most of it, uh, I, I had accountability and responsibility
Mm-hmm.
from day one, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
like I learned. I mean, maybe I feel like as a woman, we tend to be more responsible
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
accountable. I think that is probably one thing, right? But for me, I really had to work on my um, emotional stability, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then effective communicator, especially emotional stability, because there are times where you really have to draw the line and say no. right? And
Hmm.
that's really hard for me sometimes.
Yes,
That
yes.
I really had to work on that. The other things, I think, for most women, I don't see being an issue, right? I think, at least from my standpoint, as a woman, emotional stability was something I really had to work very hard on,
Okay. Yeah,
And
that's really good. That's really good because like you said, it's for women it's really hard to say no or take criticism
yep,
or look at the negative rather than the positive. And so it is tough. That is not easy. So you have to kind of grow a thicker skin, I guess, over time.
yep,
Yeah. Yeah. And then we see a lot here is confidence a lot of women don't have that confidence when they come into the field, and they always second guess themselves because everything needs to be perfect in their eyes. And men don't. If they're 60% qualified, they can talk about it. No question. But if women are 60% qualified, they don't even step up. It's because they want it to be 100%. And confidence is very important in this industry, in a male dominated industry, because you really need to show that you can do this job.
yeah. So that's a very good point, right? And that's why I was saying, right, know what you are getting into from a
Hmm.
like, just don't go get paper certification. And that was one of the main reasons, right? If you don't know what you're talking about, you will not be able to be
Right.
talking confidently, right? Um, for me, I think 2003 was an eye opener, to 2005, right? 2005, when I actually spent from 2003 to 2005, getting that certification and knowing the technology gave me so much confidence.
Hmm.
Um, it was a big boon, to be
Yep.
honest.
No, that's so true. I think a couple things that I would add to your list. I think your list is very strong and right on point. But things that I've learned is to be a continuous learner. So you have to continue to thrive by learning every day because, like you said, your certifications 20 years ago are kind of obsolete now. But if you're continuously thriving and you're learning and you're passionate about continuous learning, I think that's important as a senior leader because in this industry, things change so fast. And then the other one I would say is to take risks because, like you said, when you make a decision, you just have to stick with it. You can't change your mind. I've made some decisions throughout my career that some were strong and some were good, great, and some were not so good. But again, you learn from those mistakes and you learn from those decisions that you could have made a different choice. So I think, taking risks is another very important piece. Any thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree, especially on learning new technology, right? As you
Mhm.
mentioned, which goes back to your first point, right? So it's really important, I think, especially in IT. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, if we don't learn new technologies, we are going to be obsolete and we'll
Right,
be moved out
right,
of this industry
right,
pretty fast,
right.
right? IT is so fast paced. If we cannot catch up, yeah, there will be somebody replacing us pretty soon.
Yeah, 6 months is a long time in IT.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Agree.
that's
Agree.
crazy. That's crazy. So can you share any tips on how to lead in a male-dominated field like IT? Because you're a woman in IT, and I'm sure you're male, it is a male-dominated field here. What do you feel really works for you?
Confidence,
Hmm.
communication, working really hard.
Yep,
I feel like, in IT, as a woman, you really have to work more than a man
I
to
agree.
survive.
I agree.
Otherwise, and you have to be tough. You really have to
Mhm.
be tough. Sometimes it shows up as arrogance, but if you're not tough, you're going to be really pushed over,
Right, right.
right?
No, so true.
So, that's, I think, really important, right?
Those are good.
And
Yeah.
that's really important. And it doesn't come overnight, right? It takes practice. There will be a lot of failures, but um, getting confidence and working hard, I think, as a woman is inbuilt for most of us,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But the confidence and the communication, and then being tough, um, are the things you're really critical. And if you cannot learn over a period of time, IT is going to be really hard.
Right. No, completely agree. Very, very great tips there. So this is a tough one. Work-life balance, is there such a thing? How do you do this? How do you balance your time between work and home and family and friends and all of that? Give us some tips if you have any, because I don't.
Unfortunately, I'm still trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Especially the field that I'm in, which is managed services. We are a 24/7, right?
Yeah.
I have to be there whenever customer needs, right, for any kind of escalations. As a mom of two, it's really hard, right? And my kids are really young, right? I'm still trying to figure out. But one thing I will say is develop some hobby that gives you some kind of outlet to get over your stress, because that's really important. IT always comes with stress, whether you like it or not, and it's up to us as to how we are going to manage that stress, right?
Yeah.
So find an outlet, right? And then have a schedule, right? Like this is the time, like from 8 to 10 I am not available, and this time is dedicated in the evenings for my family and my kids.
Right.
I am not going to look at my phone, I'm not going to look at my emails and get pulled into, right? I mean, there are exceptions, but you will have to set some kind of a schedule like that, to really find a work-life balance. Otherwise, IT is going to consume, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Boundaries are so important. Now, do you set some of these, or is it really tough? Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't.
Most of the time I can. So I have a rule in my this thing where I don't have my office emails on my phones.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That's really good.
yeah. So that's one of my boundaries, right? If it is really important, you guys need to text me or call me. I am not going to be checking my emails all the time. So that I'm just giving an example, right?
That's a great example. Yeah.
I mean, you got to come up with something like that. Otherwise, you're going to be consumed, right? With the day-to-day, especially with the managed services business that I am in. There is always something happening, always something down, right? So I had to take a decision, I think a couple of years back, wherein I'm like, I am not going to have emails, but I have Teams. You can message me, right? But I'm not going to be consuming and reading my emails after hours. Come up with some kind of a boundary, right? That is one thing that I have. And if it's critical, call us, right? Call me, text me, right? And the other thing that I do is like I have a set days where I tell the teams I'm not available. If I am on PTO, I am on PTO. Don't call me, right?
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you really need to have a backup for yourself. Make sure the people are trained, right? Which will help you take this work-life balance, right? Otherwise, you're going to be contacted if you're a single point of contact all the time.
Yeah, it is really, really tough. This has been a very big struggle for me, through the years, because I'm not good at setting boundaries. And I did, for a large portion of my career, I didn't have little kids anymore. So I was able to take the calls and, interrupt my vacation, interrupt my time at home. So I really think you have really good ideas on setting boundaries. I think those are very important. So, Radhika, where is the most favorite place that you travel to and why? I'm a big travel buff, and so I love to travel. So I'm always looking for ideas. So this is a selfish question.
Wow, that's one of my passion, right? If you ask me
Yeah.
a couple of hobbies, gardening is one, and the other hobby is traveling for me, right?
Nice.
I'm a big nature person, right? I like to travel all national parks. But if you really ask me what my favorite place that I have visited so far is Kauai, the island of Kauai, right? It's magical. I feel
It is magical. I've been there and I love it too.
yeah. So the second best place, if you ask me, is the Zion National Park in Utah.
I have not been there. Yeah.
So yeah,
And why Zion National Park?
I feel like you can really disconnect from everything, right?
The nature
And
brings you in.
nature brings you in, and you're given an opportunity to think what you can do better personally, professionally, right? And de-stress. Um, and I feel like anytime I go into a national park, that really helps me do that and
That's
really
going on my
de-stress.
list. That's going on my list. I have to do that.
Yeah, and the
Oh,
other
that's
thing
great.
is there are no self-services in most of the national parks.
Right, right. That's the
So
best part, right? That's awesome. Well, thank you, Radhika. We could have gone forever talking about so many different things. You've been such a great guest and an honor to have you on the show. Can you please share with our listeners how they can get a hold of you?
sure, they can send an email to radhika_jn@yahoo.com if they need to,
Okay.
contact me. I mean, I have my LinkedIn profile, right, as well. And then, yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. Your insights, your tips and tricks and best practices are definitely going to be used by our listeners. And we really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Tech in the Right Direction. Please take a minute to subscribe or follow so that you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thank you. See you next week.
From IT skill enhancements to end user adoption training, Directions Training is your resource to help optimize the effectiveness of your technology investments. Over 500,000 students have taken advantage of our wide selection of technology and business training solutions covering the most popular applications today, such as Microsoft 365, Azure, Windows 10, and more. As a podcast listener, we invite you to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Receive 30 days of free access to our Microsoft official curriculum on-demand courses for IT professionals or end users. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com/podcast to claim this offer today. Hurry, this offer is only available for a limited time. Success is a journey. Ask for directions.